Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Big Home Ed Conversations. My name's Kelly, and I'm here with Ashley. We are here to do our finale for this season. You're going to have to, those of you with OCD out there, I apologise for ending on an odd number. We missed one in the middle there, we are literally nose against the window of Ashley flying off to Italy in a couple of days. So we need to make sure that we've got this last episode recorded for you. So you'll just have to accept that there's 11 episodes of this series, and I promise we'll make it an even number next time. It's bothering me too. So we are going to talk to you today about travelling with kids. We thought that we kind of delve into some of our recent experiences, and obviously what we're kind of about to experience with various different things, because there's been a couple of things really bothering me in the news recently about schools really cracking down on attendance and really not considering the reasons why parents are pulling their kids from school during term time. And also actually how I personally believe it's absolutely nobody's business what a family does with their time. We opt into school, we utilise school if we want to, and I certainly don't feel like anybody should be being fined if they decide to do something different with their kids for a couple of weeks. So we thought we'd talk about that a bit today, and about the opportunities and experiences our kids get, and actually the way it helps to cement learning as well, and really help to give them experiences that stick in their brains when they physically get to experience it in person. But so our funny story for this week, so I would like to bring you something as a little nugget of lived experience. And this week we get to mock me, honestly. So I've just literally got back from Norway. Been away with the kids for a week on a cruise, which has been amazing. But I am a comedy of errors. So literally, I don't think I've ever been on a holiday where I haven't managed to maim myself at some point. And this time I literally did it in spectacular style. So the day that we were literally leaving, down in Southampton, and we were literally getting our bags organised and ready, packed up from the hotel we've been staying in to go to the ship. And I managed to kick my suitcase, and I broke 2 toes. It was the worst. Absolutely astonishingly painful, and they went very purple, and they still hurt now, so I know they're definitely not just stubbed toes, but actually definitely broken. But you know, this is like proper mum tough nut zone, right? Because I mean, most people would think, I think I might have broken my toes. I think instead of getting on this ship, they probably need to go to A&E. And my brain is like, nope, all they'll do is strap them up. Even if they're broken, they won't do anything with it. So I'm getting on the ship. Yeah. And as it was literally just the toes, it wasn't further up my foot. Obviously, if it's further up my foot, I really would not have been silly, but I literally have just soldiered on. But then literally on our last port, I twisted my ankle, my other foot, and I fell on my left knee and my left wrist. And I managed to injure myself in another spectacular way. So I've literally spent most of the week hobbling about. It's like feeling thoroughly sorry for myself at this point, because it's so like I still ache in a number of different places and should probably actually go to the hospital now for like a full body x-ray for injuries I've managed to sustain. But obviously, all of that aside, we did have a wonderful time. It came a lot worse. I'm just very, very grateful that I didn't actually really hurt myself in a way that would have been unfixable in those situations. I mean, they can like airlift you out of cruise ships, but I don't think I ever want the embarrassment of having that happen to me. So
yeah, no, quite avoid that.
Yeah, we're definitely going to avoid that one. So we thought, obviously this week, talking about the idea of kind of travelling, but not just travelling. So I appreciate that, obviously, trying to make sure we're being sensible and inclusive here, and recognising that not everyone has the opportunity to travel with their kids, especially in the current climate. But just opportunities that are real and in person as well. So like, I'm going to kind of just refer to both at the same time, because there's some stuff which I've observed this past week that has really reminded me why it was super important that I didn't feel like we had to carry on doing what I term as school, aka trying to make sure they do some reading, maths, science, whatever, whilst we're away. Mm-hmm. Why I didn't spend a lot of time sort of like being teacher and trying to tell them loads of facts and figures and stuff as we're going around. Did a little bit because they were interested, they're asking good questions and stuff. But essentially, we've been learning about Norway for months, just various different angles like Vikings and Ice Age and glaciers and like all kinds of different amazing things. And I have really, really enjoyed covering those topics with them. And I found myself, as we kind of got to Norway, I'm starting to see all these amazing things. Just witnessing them putting the pieces of the puzzle together. Like we hiked up to see a glacier, which is another hilarious story that was advertised as 1.5 kilometer walk and turned out to be 5 up a friggin'
Great for the
mountain.
toes.
Yeah, with my broken toes. And literally 2 days after I broke them. That aside. But yeah, the kids managed it, which I was really impressed by. But we went up to see this amazing glacier, and as we kind of got up to quite near it, I was able to kind of point out to him the sort of the U shape of the valley. Like you could really see the fact that it creates a U shape instead of a V shape, which is what you get when you have a river that goes through and carves the landscape instead. And he was like, "Oh yeah, look, you can really see it," and like you can see the striations on the rocks that we were clambering over. That you could see where the glacier had moved along them and ground them away. Just really, really cool stuff that, like, we'd talked about, we'd seen in books, we'd seen a YouTube video about, but now we're physically seeing it, touching it, like, experiencing it. And I think that this is one of the things about home education that I just adore. I don't know about you, Ashley. I could actually have a word in edgeways at some point. But, like, this idea of being able to physically do and go to the things that we talk about and have nobody telling us off for it. Like there is no guilt. There is no like, oh, I'm being naughty. It boggles. My mind boggles that someone could actually be fined real hard cash and even end up with a criminal record for taking their child to see a glacier that they might have been learning about in school and to actually experience it for real. Like, I don't really understand what this world is coming to, if I'm honest.
Yeah, that to me is just so, I get wild, like unexpected, fathomable. I just think about in the States, if someone tried to fine someone for taking their kid out of school, it would be chaos.
Yeah.
It really would be, it wouldn't work. It wouldn't happen. I certainly don't know of any schools in the States that fine you for missing. And yeah, it's just something where like the attendance rules there are definitely set by the state, typically the state law, but then each individual district has a superintendent and they are kind of responsible for enforcing the attendance rules. And that's just something that you would never hear of, someone being fined for missing classes. Especially if it's not that they're cutting class. It's not, we're not talking about a teenager missing a high school class. We're talking about a parent calling in and saying, we're going on vacation or we're going wherever it is to maybe visit families whose child is graduating, for example, and you want to bring your kids to see their cousin graduate. Something like that. Yeah. That seems pretty valid to me and just really not the school's business. Frankly.
No. Yeah, I agree. I think there's so much of family life that we don't realise sometimes when we opt into school, and it is an opt-in process, and that we're agreeing to give up a huge amount of our power and freedom. And I think that what's really amazing, actually, more and more, is parents are starting to recognise that actually elective home education is not as scary as people maybe have been thinking in the past. And it's certainly not just a backup or fallback plan if school doesn't work. And I really feel like more and more people are starting to recognise that actually that they are giving up a lot of their power by agreeing to send their children to school, because you end up locked into this, like, a schedule, a weekly routine. You've got to take all of your holiday breaks on the school holidays. You've got to find paid for childcare if you need to carry on working through those holidays. Like, all of it, really. It's just bonkers to me. But I think kind of getting back to the topic, I suppose, and the idea of what they're gaining. I mean, it's really simple stuff too, right? I only noticed this towards the end of the week, but my youngest, she's 4, and she can recognise like most of her numbers, but she'd definitely muddle them up, and more often than not, she'd ask me to confirm had she got the right one. And obviously, you're on a cruise ship. It's got 18 floors minus deck 13. Cruise ships don't have a deck 13. I'm not sure if that's just a no deck 13 on any ship. Maybe it's just like a bit of a maritime superstition, but there is no deck 13. It took me 2 days of going downstairs to recognise that somehow we kept skipping from 14 to 12. That was quite amusing. But anyway, so then literally they were recognising their numbers, not only recognising and like pinpointing certain things like where the buffet was, where the swimming pool was, where the room was, but actually I was saying, right, we need deck 8, and she was straight away pressing deck 8. And I was like, she's got it. Like, she's actually recognizing her numbers. And like, I kept saying to her, like, I'd say to her, right, take me home. And she would literally get us in the lift. She'd press the right level, which is 12. And she'd take us back to 12533, which is the room number. Like, she'd find it for me each time, and she was just having such a laugh trying to find it. And like, she'd go to the right side of the ship. She'd obviously work her way through, so she was recognizing the difference between odds and evens. Like, there's all kinds of stuff that she was demonstrating an understanding of chronology. She was recognizing her numbers better. She was more confident. She was like gaining spatial awareness, navigation. Like, there's so many things in that she was picking up on completely naturally in her own excited glee, like, with nobody kind of saying like what number's this, but just her just doing it. And my goodness, the fighting over elevator buttons, like, I will never experience anything quite like it. The excitement of getting to press a button. I said I was going to get some installed on the wall at home, just for their own entertainment. They can just press buttons all day long. I'm sure it'll stop being funny after 5 seconds. But yeah, I mean, it's just stuff like that. It's little moments like that make you, like, another great opportunity. Actually, was talking to my son. There was a couple of speedboats that thought it'd be really funny to try and keep up with the cruise ship. And obviously it's massive, and the way it's going through the water is just so smooth and steady. And those speedboats were literally going hell for leather. They were right up out the water, like going as fast as they could, and they couldn't keep pace with this ship. And it was really amazing. Like, it really made you realize how fast you were actually going. Like, it was just so incredible. And he was really like, Mum, look, they can't even keep up. Like, it doesn't feel like we're going that fast, but we must be going really fast. And like, it's just amazing. Like, again, perspective, recognizing that houses were smaller. They looked like tiny little matchbox houses. But they didn't seem that far away. Like, it felt really weird because you're so high off the water, and it was just, anyway, it just, really fascinating stuff about kind of perspective and recognizing things in your environment, and just the curiosities. And there's just so much. And I just think that there's no way in 1,000 years that we could have watched a YouTube video or read a book or talked about it in a class setting, and they would take in even a fraction of what they took in being in Norway. Like, we could have talked about Norway until we're blue in the face, but it would not have stuck like it did seeing it and touching it and experiencing it in person. And I think that's the same for all of us. Like, they say that if you want to learn to speak French, go live in France. Like, don't just try and learn it off an app or something. Go there, do it, live it. There's a funny bit in a book, Out of Our Minds, I'm listening to still. It takes me forever to listen to books. He said about if you taught children to swim or asking them to balance on their bellies on a desk and do the breaststroke, and then said, well, in 3 years' time, once you've mastered the movements, we'll let you get in the water, that we know what's going to happen. Like, they will sink. Like, there's no way they will actually still be able to swim. And so it's like this idea of, like, I just feel like so much more of the learning that we do, even if we are struggling just to like get out and about and go to different days out and stuff like that, is just to try and recognize that in every situation where they get physically hands-on with something, they're going to be picking up so much more. And I just love that. I just think it's really exciting.
Yeah, I think we almost train that out of children by being in that school environment consistently year over year over year. And right at this age, I mean, we have children that are still quite young. That curiosity and that need for like tangible experiences is still very real. And we know that kids learn better through play. We know that if they have to memorize something, it takes like, I forget the number, but it's like over 100 repetitions. Whereas if they do the same thing through play, it's like 8.
Yeah.
You know, and they know something. So it's so much, I would say, I just think that type of learning style where they can immerse themselves in it as much as possible is so powerful. And it really just does kind of cement it in their brain in just a very different way than if they're flipping through a book. And I know when we lived in Italy, we were reading, I think this was when my daughter was in first grade. It was our first year homeschooling. And there was a language arts curriculum that we were using that had an art component to it. And randomly, the art piece that they were looking at and asking the kids to like look at the colors being used and textures and what do you think that kid in the picture is thinking. And I looked up because I knew the name was Italian. I looked up the artist, and that picture was hanging in a church like 40 minutes from us.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, that's what we're going to go do. We're going to go
Yeah.
look at that, and just kind of bringing the learning off the page in a way that lets them make it become reality is so special. And I think that I get that not every experience outside of the classroom or in our case in the home or whatever we're doing, like at a desk or reading a book on the couch or something, is not going to be that way, but there is certainly potential for it, and that's why it's so wonderful to be able to do those things.
Yeah, I think it just creates more conversations too, right? I mean, my son this morning was saying about how he wishes that like bull sharks and all sorts of things could be his friends, and that he doesn't want to that he knows that if he went swimming with them that they wouldn't like be his friends, that they'd hurt him. And I was like, well, that's not strictly true. And I was like, people do swim with sharks, and they don't get hurt. I said, and also sharks can be your friends, like even if like you're not going to go and hug them, like play football with them. And I was like, but you can choose them for them to be considered a friend. And like the conversations we were having was basically sort of sparked off from an aquarium we went to see. And he's got this like we've been learning a bit about what kinds of sharks and stuff are in the ocean around that way, and it allows conversations to link from one thing to another, and for them to actually have these moments of reflection and consideration and like curiosity. And I mean, even for me, like I looked at so many different photos with the kids when we were learning about Norway beforehand, but I've maybe noticed the colours that they paint the houses, that they paint the houses nice colours because it rains most of the time. So it helps to brighten things up and to make everybody happy. So it's literally as simple as that. When they have all beautiful scallop-edged tiles that they use on their roofs, so they kind of look like fish scales and stuff like that. The things I would never have noticed and wouldn't have been there to inspire conversation and like art that I'm intending on making off the back of it, because they're just things that really kind of have inspired me. And yeah, I think that phrase sort of like taking it off the page or kind of like getting out there and physically touching it, like, because we think of play as like just running around, like being silly, playing football, like whatever, but actually playing to a child can look like so many different things. And I think that's something which I've had to really understand a lot more, taking a more unschooling approach, is to recognize what play really looks like. And play looks like helping to load the dishwasher. It looks like going and waiting out the front because you know someone's coming soon and looking for their car. It looks like, I don't know, trying to press elevator buttons. Like there's a number of different things that to a child is considered play, and it's just part of their natural fun and curiosity, that we actually lose so much of that as adults, especially when we've been schooled and we've been kind of taught to sit down, be quiet, learn what we're supposed to learn, prioritize what other people tell us we should be prioritizing, that we forget that there's so much joy to be had in simple actions like planting a plant or painting a painting and reading a book. Like we just kind of lose so much of that inherent curiosity. And I think that, again, I think we mentioned this a few episodes ago, but I really am grateful to finding home education for the curiosity that it's awoken in me again, and the opportunity to ask questions, to be curious again, like alongside the kids and the questions they ask me. I mean, my son wants to learn how to be a magician now. That's the topic they've chosen for the next phase. I'm just like, I have zero magic skills. Like I can barely juggle. Like I don't know anything else. Like I'm not. I can just about manage two balls. That's oh gosh, that's turned terrible. This is definitely still clean, right? It's a little innuendo for you. We're sorry, everybody. But yeah,
I'm so tired. My brain didn't even go there. I'm embarrassed that I'm like that. Like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
I'm blushing now. But yeah, so like I can barely do any magic. I've never done any magic tricks. I've never had the intention of learning any magic tricks. Maybe briefly as a kid, like I might have wanted to learn something. But I've honestly never really thought about it. But the second he says to me, that's what I want our next topic to be, my brain just fires up with Like, okay, how
Mhm.
are we going to find this out? Like, where can we get some information from? How can we do this? Like, where can we go? What kinds of places can we go and visit? Or like, is there a magician show near us? Is there someone who does magic tricks for birthday parties who we could maybe like see if they'll do like a little education session for the kids at the co-op we run, or
Yeah.
stuff like that. Like this, all my brain just suddenly goes instantly like, oh, this could be really fun. And thankfully, I've got a kid who likes it when I jump on the bandwagon. But I know
That's
that
good.
we just have these moments when I realise that my brain is excited to be alive. Like it's excited to do the next thing and to go to the next place and explore and to just do amazing stuff. And I'm just so grateful that I get the opportunity to, through facilitating their learning and playing with them and exploring with them, that I get to have the same amazing experiences. Like hiking up to see the glacier, for example, when we were on holiday. Like I've never seen snowy cap mountains in my life anyway, which I realised at the time. I was like, have I been never seen them up close? Like that's amazing. But as we were
Yeah.
climbing, he was like, is that glacier water that's like filtering down? I was like, yeah, it is, yeah. And he was like, can we touch it? And I was like, yeah, we can touch it. And I was just like, oh my God, yeah, let's touch it. And we both like put our hands in it and we're like sort of remarking on how cool it was and how clear it was and beautiful, and the colour of it's like this beautiful bluey colour. And yeah, just like these moments when he sparks curiosity in me like so often. And I just don't feel like this happens if you're literally being told what we're going to learn about next. This, like, when we just kind of get into that rhythm of just being told, like, we're learning about Egyptians this
Yeah.
term. Like, yes,
Yeah.
okay, it can be interesting and they can enjoy it. But actually, so much of the time, I feel like the child-led element really just brings everything alive.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think when I talk to, or when I read things even, but talking to other home ed moms, but certainly reading things about what like seasoned home ed parents have always said, like the best part of home education for them has always been learning alongside their children. So you're almost reclaiming your education and what you may or may not have missed out on through your schooling
Yeah.
years, which I think can be really like just powerful and healing if that's something that you need. But even if you had a great time in school, I think there are certainly so much, I mean, you don't know everything. So there's
No.
certainly so much that you're learning.
Yeah.
Or even just seeing like, there are so many times where I'm like, I wish it was explained to me that way. Like that makes so much sense. And instead we
Yeah.
were taught it a different way because that's just how that teacher did it, or the school did it, or everyone did it at that time. And so
Yeah.
hearing it explained a different way can be really like, yes, okay, I get it now. Like that makes sense. And um, kind of can just help us as we're kind of going along this journey with them. And I think that the more that we can take out of the process, the more that we can enjoy the process, the more our children enjoy it. And I tried to do a little bit of that kind of child-led right now as well when I was asking the girls what they want to learn about over the summer. And my oldest said she really wants to learn more about dogs. And so I'm like, okay. So then I was thinking like for the history, we can be like, famous dogs throughout time.
Mm.
And I think I popped it into the AI tool as well. It was like, what would you do for dogs?
Yeah.
Like for geography. And it came back like how different cultures view dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Different cultures and different religions like view
That
dogs.
can,
So,
that can get a little bit scary in places.
yeah, we'll have to definitely control what's being shared there. But
Yeah.
yeah, so and just kind of mapping that out on a map,
Yeah.
and
Like
then
different
having that
breeds in different
information.
areas.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and certainly in science that's easy to get into the different like biology or
Mm.
kind of all of that with the animal. And then for reading, and it was even like, or you can create for writing, if you can create a dog poem, something like that. So just some really cool ways to take something like really simple and say, okay, dogs, okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, that's great. But how do we bridge it into the other areas that I, as the parent, want them to make sure they're doing?
Mm.
So how do we pull in geography? How do we pull in history?
Yeah.
And I think you can get creative with this stuff, just like you were talking about with the magic. You know, how do we make that work? And that's going to be something cool and exciting.
Yeah. And it really helps to highlight sometimes how interconnected all the subjects are, because
Definitely.
like there's something I was sort of explaining to someone once about kind of like if you bake a cake, if you do it, if you can like really maximize it in many different ways, you could cover off history as in like who invented this recipe, or when did people start using flour, like how did they start making it, like how long ago was that. Then maybe it's kind of like who was it who first figured out that if you combine these ingredients it turns into cake. But then obviously you've got geography, like the recipe that you're making, where was that developed and why did that develop in that area, like was there a particular reason why they like to make cake like that, like for example like Cornish pasties, the fact that they used to make the pastry wasn't really edible. It was designed as a encasing basically for the filling, and one end would be sweet and one end would be savoury. And so the coal miners would keep it in their pocket, help to keep them nice and warm. And then they'd break it open at lunchtime and they'd eat the filling. They wouldn't like got dirty hands, so they'd just hold the pastry on the outside and then they'd eat the inside because it'd be kept clean. It's like it's really interesting. Some of this stuff's really fascinating and helps to delve into history and other things. Then you've obviously got the chemistry. Then you've got some science of how it actually even comes together as a cake and what's actually happening, what's the egg doing, etc. And like it keeps going and going and going. And you've got reading, you've got writing, you've got math, and you've got absolutely every subject you can possibly imagine can be included if you wanted to really get into it by baking a single cake. And I think that having these opportunities to take, as you say, take them away from the page, get them outside, get them doing something, going to a place, or even just in your own home practically doing a thing instead of just reading about it, learning about it, like maths, for example, is a great one. The more tangible and relevant it feels to them in their life. So, like, for example, the elevator buttons felt hugely relevant to her. It helped her to understand where we were going and how to get back to the room. And if she got lost, like, she knew that she could get back to the room. So at least she had that. Like, there's all these different things that the relevance that is in them in those moments, why it's important to them to be able to do it, allows them to push themselves and to overcome any kind of lag that might be going on with brain. Like, obviously, I've been trying to help her recognise their numbers for months and months now, with various different games and things like that, and she was still just asking me every time. I wasn't getting frustrated with it. I was just like, she's clearly just not, like, chosen to really commit this to memory yet. And this week, she's just, like, blown me away, and it's, like, thoroughly committed to memory. Like, same way she's like physically learned to swim by herself this week because she was just having such a great time in the pool every day that she had that opportunity to really push those skills. Like, we always see kids really coming on leaps and bounds when they have like an intensive period of time doing something. But I just think it's just so lovely to see children challenging themselves, going out their comfort zone, trying new things, playing and like manipulating situations to understand how they work and what can happen and blah blah blah. Like, they just, like, the things that they get to do in those moments definitely far outstrip anything that you could sit and try and teach them, like sat down at a table somewhere. So I guess the point was, anyway, in all this ramble, was to just kind of really emphasize the fact that you as a parent sometimes will find yourself really thinking that you've got to do more sitting down work, or you've got to read more books, or whatever it might be. And it's just to kind of reassure you that actually sometimes that's not true, and that sometimes less is more, and just get them in a place that is inspiring in some way, and that could simply be a forest, or a local lake, or literally just take some magnifying glasses and go to a forest. It doesn't have to be anything drastic, it doesn't have to cost the world, but give yourself that chance to just change the learning up a little bit, just get out and have some fun, and you'll probably find that they would take on so much more than they would if you were trying to do something more structured with them. But yeah, I think there's all kinds of things to home ed that I think are intrinsically linked to travel, or just opportunities and getting out and about, and I just think it's amazing. I think it's one of the real kind of cornerstones of why home ed becomes so special. It's just that opportunity for children to just, the classroom isn't four walls, it's not your home. it's not their grandparents' home, it's not the local park, it's literally everywhere. And I just think that just creates such a rich and varied environment for them to develop new skills. I just think it's just amazing.
Yeah, it always surprises me when people think that because you home educate, you're like in your house and you never leave and you're like lacking any kind of exposure to the outside world. And I'm thinking, like, you and I were just talking about this before we started recording, like, it's hard to stay in the home.
Yeah,
Like,
it
we have
is.
to like really plan and hang on to those home days because it's so easy to do so much, whether it's with groups or whatever. But yeah, with the opportunities to actually go and interact with the things you're learning about, I mean, those, first of all, are incredible opportunities that if you can do them, why wouldn't you? And
Yeah,
then just being able to do them, I mean, yeah, it's you're out of the home. So it's absolutely right. I mean, we kind of think of the world as the classroom, right? Not just
yeah,
the school or your house.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I just think there's so much to see and so many opportunities to have that it's, I honestly just think it's such a shame that the sort of small-mindedness in schooling in this country at the moment, referencing the UK for anyone who's new to this podcast, but like this idea that parents are going to be fined so heavily for taking their kids out. So if they do it more than 3 times in 3 years, it's a £2,500 fine. Just absolutely astronomical. And I just think it's such a shame that we're. Now, I understand that not every parent who's taken their child out of school is doing so to go and give them amazing opportunities and experiences. I get that. Like, I do get that that's not always going to be what's happening.
Right.
But I just think it's a shame that when children are needing mental health days, when they're not feeling great, when they're not coping well in school, their parent has, like, even if they're just like going to a funeral or a wedding, or they're going and doing something important, or like that the family needs to go away because one of them needs to travel for work or whatever for a little while, and they want to stay together as a family. Like, all these different reasons should allow families to have their freedoms to do what they need to do to live and to experience the world around them. And I just think it's such a shame that young people are potentially being, well, young people, but also the parents are being punished for giving their children other opportunities and experiences that are not just sitting in a school classroom, because there is just so much more world out there to see and to be interacting with, that I honestly think that every opportunity for a child to be outside of a classroom and experiencing the world around them and getting out there and being involved in that is just so enriching and important.
Yeah.
Even if it's really basic, like going to the food shop or whatever it is.
Yeah.
That I just think it's really important that we actually allow families to enrich their children's education in sensible ways as often as possible. And it shouldn't be restricted in that way. Like, we opt into school, we're using it as an option. And I just feel like parents should be given way more freedom to enjoy their life with their children.
Well, especially because I question, and I'm sure this is just me not having read everything that's come out about this, largely just because it doesn't apply to us. But what is the purpose? Is it to improve grades? Is it to have the classroom full so the teacher's not teaching to an empty classroom? Like, because when I've looked at some of the research from the US side, so what I've seen about, statistics around US schools, is that the absenteeism, what we consider like chronic absenteeism, so which is 10% of the school year, so 18 days out of 180 days school year, that the grades typically don't correlate to that. So it's not typically an indicator of someone doing poorly at school. It's more typically an indicator of some kind of crisis at home that they're having. Like, maybe the child is young and needs help getting to the bus stop, and the parents or guardian aren't waking them up in time, and because they have something else going on that they're not getting them there. So like, there can be it can be an indicator of different things for different age groups, obviously. But that it's something that just because someone wants to go to a wedding or a funeral, or a parent wants to take them on a holiday, doesn't indicate that they're going to do poorly at school.
No.
It doesn't
No.
have that
Far from it.
correlation.
No.
Yeah, and so it's definitely something. And I was seeing earlier this year at the beginning of the school year where there was some literature out about if your kid, even if your kid is like ill but they don't have a fever or something, you should, all these indicators of you should still
Mm.
send your kid to school in the UK if all,
Yeah.
even if they have this, that's okay, we don't care. And I'm just
Mm-hmm.
thinking, well, gosh, that doesn't mean the kid feels good. Like if
No.
the kid has all those things, they don't feel good. They're
No.
not going to sit in that classroom and actively participate
No.
or retain anything they're learning. They're
No.
going to be miserable. They're going to spread germs.
Yeah.
And frankly, I'm more worried about the parents that send their kids to school that way because they have no childcare option,
Yeah.
because they have no flexibility at work. I mean,
Mm.
that's the fear. If you can keep your kid home and they're ill, keep them home. Like that's almost a privilege, right? I mean, not
Yeah.
a privilege, but like it's definitely should be the choice, right? Like if you can keep your child at home and you can work from home or arrange for someone to
Yeah.
be there
Get
for
them
that
feeling
kid
well
so
again.
they can get better.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then they'll be just a much more productive student in the classroom. So yeah, I mean, I'm sure we could talk about this forever, but it's just having not grown up with the kind of attendance culture that there is here in the UK, and this stress about it. I don't know if this
Yeah.
is new or if this has always been the idea that kids need to be in
Yeah.
school. For me, it's just so surprising.
I think I'm not sure if I would need to look into how long the fines have been going on for, but I can remember as a child my mum being very anxious about us taking too much time off, and that she would
Mm,
be getting letters and they'd be calling her in to talk to her if it was more than a few times in a school year, and like people had like an attendance record, like you did, like you weren't supposed to have more than X amount of days off total per year or whatever. It's all like, I guess it's just like work prepping, isn't it? Like it's just getting you used to the idea that if you're sick when you're a grown up, you don't get to take time off. But like I just think I think the attendance culture in this country is definitely angling towards the fact that they're paying for the child to be in the school setting. They're trying to get children through and out the other end with these sort of C grades and above in maths, English, and science. The academia focus is just a chronic problem. Like they aren't putting enough energy or interest into other angles of intelligence. Like the focus is entirely on maths, English, science. That is all the way through. That's what
okay.
they want them to get at the end of it. So I think that the problem is if they're not attending on a regular basis, or if they are being pulled out for various reasons, then obviously they're missing out on chunks of the curriculum. Say your child out for 2
Yeah.
weeks midterm, they're going to miss an element of the curriculum has been taught during those 2 weeks. And so the fear is that they won't catch up, that they'll be behind when they come back and they won't know what they've been covering. And it doesn't get necessarily,
Yeah.
will get covered again to some degree, but they will have missed a chunk of it. And I can remember coming back, like when I've been off sick for a week, when I was maybe kind of late primary school, and the stress of knowing that I'd missed a chunk of
Definitely.
information and I
Yes, I
didn't
remember
know
that too.
like when we were going to kind of catch up with it again. And so I think that the truth is, because they've got kids, like that the idea is the curriculum has to be fitted into those weeks that they're in school and all the rest of it. They just expect that everyone needs to have their kids there the whole time. And that obviously they are putting the blame on parents for children that are not succeeding in terms of in their school career, because they've missed a couple of weeks here and there for sickness or travelling or whatever, which, as we say, is absolutely not going to be the reason why they've not managed to have a successful school career.
Yeah.
And yeah, also, this is kind of like a whole other topic, really, I suppose, but the point of it behind it is that obviously if we are punishing parents for then wanting to give their children other opportunities like travel, like days out trips, family occasions, or like big important moments like, say, for example, funerals or whatever, that if we're stopping parents from being able to take their children and give them real world experiences, and we're saying to them, no, they've got to be in school, that's more important, it's just driving home this idea that the only kind of success we're interested in this society is an academic one. And there's plenty of academic learning that goes on in traveling and experiencing things, even just playing on the beach. There's a ton of academic learning that is going on in that, but we don't recognize it and we don't respect it. And it's just such a shame that we have this really closed-minded attitude as to what constitutes learning and what constitutes intelligence in this country. and basically just limiting that and then funneling them in and focusing them in on those kinds of learning that doesn't work for all kids and it doesn't work for all families. And ultimately, as I say, it's like the whole kind of like learning to swim by balancing on a desk. Like there's an awful lot that we're going to be learning in school that without tangible experience of those things, it just doesn't always compute. Like they're not going to be able to draw the relevance and to see why it matters to them. And certain concepts are just never going to make sense because they're just never going to witness them. That's why so many people leave school feeling like most of it was just a waste of time because you're never going to use it. Like you don't see the relevance at all. And I just think that's such a shame. It's such a missed opportunity when there are so many practical uses for the things that are being taught in schools that kids need to see and feel and touch so that it actually cements into their brain. And so what a great bit in Out of Our Minds I was listening to today that he was saying about if you teach a group of children how to use an abacus to do simple maths and like addition and subtraction, and then we take a child who hasn't been taught with an abacus and we give them a calculator to use to do it, and then we ask them a bunch of different sums, the children with the abacus will do it faster because their brains can visualize like 6 and 4. They've physically seen it like so many times that it's just physically cemented in their brain. Whereas a child just typing in 6 + 4 = onto a calculator, there's no grasping, like the numbers don't have as much physical concept to them, so they're not going to be able to do it like instantly in their head. So if you then ask the children who've only ever used a calculator or like just numbers, the same questions as the children who have an abacus, but you take away their calculator and their abacus, the kids with the abacus can do it much faster still because they can visualize it in their heads. And they've physically touched it and played with it and manipulated it themselves. And I think these are just really great, thoughtful moments. And I think this is why I really emphasize it's really important when you're deschooling, when you're figuring out homeschooling, you're in the very sort of early stages, is to be reading some of these books because they really help you to recognize how many different methods and approaches we need to really be considering, and how school methods aren't always the best methods that we've been taught to think they are, but they're not necessarily gold standard at all. And we have got opportunities to do so many really incredible things with our kids. And to actually, if you think how simple it seems to allow a child to physically manipulate objects to help them learn how to do maths, I've often thought, no, I need to get them used to using numbers and using it out as an actual sum because they're going to need to know it that way. And it's like, well, no, but actually, they will know it that way. This actually helps them to build that knowledge for that, so that when they see it in number form, they'll just get it because the concept will feel relevant and practical to them. But anyway, as I say, we could go on about this forever.
Yeah,
but I just think it's fascinating that we'll often doubt ourselves and feel like we should be doing it in a more schooly way. And I think sometimes we just have to really question that and often go down a far more practical and experiential route. But yeah, I think that's pretty much where we should wrap it up, I guess, for today. I've been talking for a little while, but I guess I know that Ashley will want to say it as well, but thank you so much to those of you who are listening and who are getting involved and reaching out to us and stuff as well, and obviously leaving us the reviews and things. We've had some really, really lovely comments, and it really means an awful lot to us. We are going to take a short break, so we're going to be getting some stuff pre-recorded and getting it ready to come back to you kind of beginning of August. So we're going to be taking June, July off, and we're back with a new series in August. If there is something that you want us to be prepping and including in the next series, please do reach out. So I am at Offroading Motherhood on Instagram, and Ashley is homeschool.in.progress on Instagram as well. If you use TikTok, then I am banish.home.ed.burnout. So come and find us, come and chat to us and tell us what you would love for us to be talking about next time. But for now, thank you so much for being our listeners for our first ever series. It's been a lot of fun recording it all. I'll let Ashley say a few words as well.
Yeah, no, definitely give us ideas and feedback, because we're going to be spending some time planning as we start to rev up for the next season here. And we want to make the stuff that you want to hear. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. And thanks for listening.
Yeah, it's been really good fun. And I think we're slowly getting into our flow with it now as well. Hopefully you've started to notice that, fingers crossed. During last time, that's just like hilariously falling about laughing because Ashley's cat decided to make a star appearance right in the middle of an episode. So that was hilarious. But anyway, we will let you get on with your day. And, yeah, just thanks again. Thank you so much. It really means an awful lot to us that you listen and that you are involved in our little journeys. See you all on the next one. Take care, guys. Have a lovely summer break.
Bye.